Hello and welcome to Simple Scotch Reviews. Here we've got Glenlivet 15. It's a single malt Scotch whiskey. It is the French Oak Reserve version of Glenlivet. They may have a more obscure 15-year-old that I'm not recalling right now, but this is the only 15-year-old that I've ever seen, at least, for purchase. It is bottled at 40% ABV. My understanding is that they take Glenlivet 12 and then finish it for 3 years in virgin French oak casks. At least that's my understanding. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I have had this whiskey before. I believe I've just had it at a bar or two, and I remember it being good. Don't really remember much about it at all. On the nose, I'm getting vanilla. There's some of those just typical Glenlivet fruit flavors that I think of, those pear, apple, more apple than pear. Well, as I nose this whiskey, it's definitely making me think I'm gonna need to do a comparison video with Glenlivet 18. I'm getting the vanilla, some fruit. I'll say this one takes some time to open up in the glass. Initially, I was getting a really muted nose without anything at all. The longer it sat there, I started to get more of the fruit flavors. Initially, I got vanilla sweetness and not a whole lot else. But now I'm picking up those traditional Glenlivet fruits I mentioned. Nothing really a surprise on the nose, like nothing that I wouldn't expect from a typical Glenlivet. There's really interesting sweetness on the palate. I get vanilla. I get a toasted vanilla, almost like a marshmallow, like a roasted marshmallow flavor. But no smoke or anything. When I say roasted, I just mean a toasted type flavor, not anything to do with smoke like campfire or anything of that sort. This is the far other end of the spectrum of the whiskey flavors. Toasted vanilla, the vanilla flavor. So vanilla is the main note, and fruit kind of takes a back seat on this Glenlivet. Still getting the fruit, but as I recall other Glenlivet offerings, the fruit is featured more prominently than on this one. And I was super disappointed initially because I didn't get those baking spice notes that I get from the older Glenlivets. Well, older than the 12, like the 15, the 18, 21. But they started to show up the more this one opened up. Give this one some time in the glass if you can. So you got your first layer, which is the vanilla, then you get some of those subtle fruit, like probably red apple being the main fruit if I had to put a label on it. Hint of caramel, and then a subtle note of baking spice. Out of memory, that cinnamony, nutmeg, that baking spice note is much more subdued in this 15 than it is in the older ones like the 21 and the 18. But yeah, sweetness. This is a sweet whiskey. Not a whole lot else to it. On the finish, it's a lingering sweetness, not a super big finish. No surprises on the finish, kind of just a lingering sweetness with a hint of fruit. There's not anything like showing up, even on the back end of the palate into the finish, nothing new shows up. You get that initial wave, which is just the vanilla sweetness, but then the fruit shows up, but there's nothing like in the back end leading into the finish, anything that surprises you in the finish that you don't get in the whiskey. Nothing's really a surprise from the nose either. I'd say overall, not a bad whiskey at all. It's tasty. It's on the sweeter end for me. I found when I started to read other reviews of this whiskey that I got a much different impression from it than they did. Some of them said very fresh, vibrant. I don't get that at all. I get the vanilla sweetness, some fruit, some subtle fruit with that. I don't get the vibrant, fresh, young fruits. I don't get that. I also don't get any chocolatey notes or any coffee, that type, none of those more sherried type notes. I know this is French oak finish, it's not a sherry finish, but a lot of people were talking about that. I don't get that in this whiskey. Overall, solid whiskey, it's good. I'd say that its place in my shelf would be for, you know, just sharing with people newer to whiskey. I think it's a good introductory whiskey. It's sweet, not gonna overwhelm with complexity, not gonna be any flavors that anyone should find off-putting. The biggest criticism of it would be that someone might find it a little bit boring, but because it's not complex, because if you're after that complexity, to me, there's still a place for whiskey if it's not complex. If the flavors are nice, I'm fine with that. Sometimes I'm in the mood for something more complex, but I'd say this whiskey is nice. I wouldn't say it's one everyone needs to go out and try. Every whiskey's worth trying, but I think this one's a try before you buy it if you can, just because the price tag versus what you're getting, I think is great to have on hand to share with others and share with some people that don't really know Scotch, so that you can kind of give them an introduction. I think it's a good beginner Scotch. Glenlivet in general is a good beginner Scotch, and I'm not saying beginner as in if you're into Scotch, you shouldn't be liking Glenlivet. I really enjoy Glenlivet still. It's never super complex, something that's wowing you in that way, but I haven't had a bad Glenlivet. That's just what it is. It's not anything spectacular that I've had. I shouldn't say spectacular. The 18, the 21, those that I've had are very, very good flavor. It's just nothing in complexity intriguing. It's just nice flavor, smooth. But there's a very small list of distilleries that I can say I've had several offerings from that I haven't found one that was even a mild disappointment. Everything from Glenlivet's been good, solid, and I'd recommend it for beginner Scotch drinkers, also for people into Scotch who want to kind of get other people into it or to share with others that might be interested. It's a good one to share with them. Either way, hope you found this review helpful. Like, subscribe, check out the channel. More reviews are coming. In the near future, I hope to get around to reviewing Glenlivet 25. That's probably going to be my next Glenlivet review. I'm going to make that comparison video that I talked about because I really want to see how this one compares to the 18. But my next new Glenlivet video is probably going to be the 25-year-old. So watch for that coming soon. Subscribe to get the new videos when they come out. There's all sorts of whiskey on there. There's Irish whiskey. There's other whiskeys as well. I also have Balcones single malt and American single malt. The first American single malt that I'm reviewing, not the first that I've had, but the first one I'm reviewing. So that'll be coming up shortly as well. And I'm also going to take a dive into the Dewar's brand coming up. So subscribe to get notified. Check out the channel for what's already up and enjoy your whiskey. Thanks for watching.